So
right now, most of them know us, but give us another couple
and thank
weeks.
you guys for listening. Also,
For real.
Seriously,
We really appreciate. Yeah,
sorry for the power going out. I'm struggling through this.
He's having a rough time. We can tell here.
Before we get started on this episode, I'd like to do our little shout out with the Timberwolf here. I'm deeply sorry for the lateness of this video. I've had a lot of stuff going on and sadly could not sit down for 5 minutes it takes to edit these episodes to put on the podcast. So please, I apologize with Timberwolf. As always, we have to shout out our Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to post any podcast or anything that you want to record to post out there on the social media World Wide Web and just get your voice heard. It's the easiest way to do it, and it's free. It's got everything you need right there. As always, our first ever shout out goes to, with all due respect, the podcast that has no bounds. They just released their new episode 40, The Chiefs Dynasty, Dave, and Super Smash. A really funny episode. I encourage y'all to go listen in on it and give them some love. Our second shout out goes to our buddy Horton. Deal with it. He has his 5th video that just came out 3 days ago where he gets to walk around with makeup on his face in public while his wife laughs at him. A really good family show and just funny to watch what these two do. Go subscribe to their channel on YouTube. That is Deal With It, HNH. Subscribe to him. Show him some love from the Untamed family. And our new sponsors, not really sponsors, but just a shout out, but hopefully one day they'll sponsor us. The Southern Star Brewing Company podcast. They just released their new episode that I was supposed to be on, but due to some things going down, I could not join in on them. But the Timberwolf will be joining in for some of that free beer. Episode 19, they respond to the Greg Abbott crisis that's going around right now with everything going on with the corona. Listen in on them, show them some of the Untamed love as well. Also, be sure to try the Southern Star Brewing beer. Sorry, I cannot talk today. They've got a wide variety from your lights to your darks, and I've tried every single one of them, and I can only say great things about them. They've got some new stuff coming out, so be on the lookout for that. As always, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for being the tens of listeners. Stay safe, stay untamed, and wash your motherfucking hands. On to Fuck 2020, episode 10 of the Untamed Texas podcast. Thank you for listening in. Once again, I want to shout out Anchor. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. We'll have another sponsor coming up in this next 30-minute segment.
Or will we?
No. Jameson?
Jameson. Whether they're not official or not, let's do it. Let's do a shout out. Let's do a little.
Daddy.
Let's all cheers boys to Jameson.
Cheers to Jameson. Clink them, boys. There we go. Yeah.
Heat Daddy figured out some interesting news about whiskey.
So while we had our little break there, shout out for Anchor. I got tagged in a thing on Facebook. I'm not admitting to alcoholism, which I say far too often. I'm just saying I get tagged in a lot of alcohol stuff. So I said that Jameson, there's a correlation. I drink Jameson and don't have Corona. I get tagged in this article that says a top German doctor recommends whiskey to protect against COVID-19. It's on Facebook, which means
it's true.
It has to be true.
It has to be.
I mean, nobody would ever lie on Facebook. I mean, come on, man. And the person that tagged me in it, hopefully they listen to this and know who I'm talking about. I don't want to say their name,
right?
Privacy. We don't need hate mail.
No, we don't need to be demonetized.
You said we didn't talk about Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars. Justin and I have never talked Star Wars. Him and I.
And I just learned literally 5 minutes for recording that you were a massive Star Wars fan, which I didn't know.
On the first episode, me and Justin talked about it. If y'all haven't listened to it, it was brief, but we still talked about it.
But we only talked about the Rise of Skywalker, which
because it flew.
Talking about.
It's hard to start there, and I will. I'll wait till we get there. But see, I talk a lot. One of my really good friends. Actually, a cool story. Our family has been friends for I think 3 or 4 generations.
Oh wow.
4. My kids would be 4. My grandfather and his grandfather were both in. I think his grandfather was Korea. My grandfather was Vietnam. But both his grandfather was Air Force. Mine was Army.
Mm-hmm.
They were friends for years. His mother and my mother were best friends, are still to this day. And then he and I grew up together. But Scotty Hawk is right. Scott Hawkins, and he goes by Hawk. Scotty Hawk.
That's a badass name.
Yeah. And you'd like him. side of his head's shaved. He's big into the Viking look.
Oh, cool.
He's got that Viking look.
Celtic.
And shout out to that show because
he doesn't mind it.
That's a good show.
He doesn't mind it. He dabbles a little bit in the ways of the weed. But
the ways of the weed.
What a lucky guy.
He is the biggest Star Wars nerd. And I don't mean nerd in the negative sense.
No,
if I
I'd
have
say
a question
pride in
on Star, he Snapchats me probably 3 or 4 days a week. And I'm horrible with Snapchat. I don't respond a lot. When I get drunk, I do. But I don't respond a lot. But he has all the theories. If I remember right, he's got his own blog and maybe YouTube where he does videos on the different theories.
There's a lot of blogs out there for Star Wars.
The stuff he tells me when I got into watching, actually he told me to watch Rebels. When Disney Plus first came out, I'd never seen Star Wars Rebels.
Mm-hmm. Have you watched
that?
And
I went and watched it. Have you seen that one?
Not yet. And see, that's what's weird. I haven't watched it yet because
it's good.
I'm on the Clone Wars right now.
You need to watch
Clone Wars. I'm watching it live
I struggled
right now.
through Clone Wars. I made it through the first maybe 2 or 3 seasons.
You got to get past it. Once you get past that, I'm telling you, I say this. Get past the first 2 seasons. After that, dude, the quality just
after the fourth,
so good.
After like the 3rd season, I really got into it.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it because I like.
When I first watched it, I was like, I told Justin like this fucking kid show,
and it is.
And then I started watching. I'm like, this isn't a kid show.
But if you look,
there's some dark shit in this.
The original 1977 release of Star Wars was made for kids,
right?
Regardless of how good the story is or not. George Lucas set out to make a serialized series for
and then he
children.
had to put incest into it, and it was like, whoa, man.
Well, it's amazing. Every Star Wars fan just ignores that Luke and Leia moment.
Except for Han, who still holds a grudge. Like,
and even if it didn't happen, they didn't know.
Right.
You know, we know looking back, but it's not, they didn't know.
Exactly.
When I first watched it, I was kind of like, there's like a brother-sister thing. That's the same thing that happened with Ben and Rey. I'm sitting there when I first watched it, I was like, damn it, they're going to do the same thing they did with Luke and Leia. They're going to kiss, and everyone's going to be like, oh, crap, they're like fucking cousins or some shit. I'm like, oh, bring out the banjo. Like, here we go.
So I was raised on the original trilogy.
Right.
And I loved them. I loved it for all its faults, and they came out.
It's almost like the faults make the movie
it
better.
Yeah, it makes it better.
Like,
and George Lucas went through hell. There's a show on Disney Plus. Do you have Disney Plus?
Yeah.
There's a show on there that I think it's called The Making of an Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like a documentary where they show the footage.
I've seen some of it.
Yeah, and I watched it one night, and I didn't realize all the hell he went through
George,
to get that made.
Like, as much as we'll get into it, how I feel about the prequels, but I still respect George Lucas massively. That man created something so incredible, dude. Like,
and that'll
saga
never go away.
A saga that went on for generations. Even the first generation of Star Wars, fucking 10-year-olds know what the first generation was
knows
about.
What Star Wars is, even if you don't watch it, they
know what it is.
You
say Star Wars. Oh, you mean the light swords? Like lightsabers,
well, at least you know
whatever.
Don't be stupid.
What the hell? Light swords?
Real quick, like if there were actual lightsabers, dude,
I'd carry one.
I would too.
Write that into the Second Amendment.
Right.
We have the right to bear arms, ...
lightsabers.
And lightsabers.
Keep two of them strapped to the back.
Justin said you're not big on the prequels.
All right, yeah, let's get into that shit.
I do think the prequels were a little bit of a disaster, but I liked them for the story.
See, I want to preface
the story's good. I just didn't like
you. Obviously, you grew up with the original trilogy,
right? Box VHS set,
baby. Me too.
Digitally remastered the original.
Actually, the digitally remastered ones, I wasn't. I mean, they were still good, but the stuff they added in, like I don't feel like
the
it
CG.
added anything.
My thing was how they added in. Like if you look back, I think it was the first one. They did the Han and not the Han and
that's the big one.
The Han and Griot, and they added in a Han and Jumba scene where Jumba just looks like a Play-Doh mistake.
See, luckily I have
it's a CGI remake, and you just look like, oh my god, they really tried fucking hard as hell to add Jumba.
Well, back then the technology
horrible.
wasn't good enough to. So
no, this was the digitally remastered version. This was recently they released this.
Just recently. Okay,
This
is the one probably on Disney Plus then.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like I'm looking like,
put that one on there.
No.
The versions I have, they don't have that scene. I know what you're talking about. They don't have
you've seen it. It's horrible.
It's awful, yeah. But, you know.
You haven't seen it, Mike?
No.
It's pretty bad.
Just go on YouTube and type in worst Jumba ever, and it's right there. It's horrible. Like, I'm just like, oh.
So tell what your feelings on the prequel.
So growing up, like, as a kid, you know, I knew Star Wars, watched the originals. My parents luckily showed me all that shit. But I feel like I remember as a little kid, back when 1999 happened, they took me to go see The Phantom Menace. And I remember as a kid, it was like the best movie ever. This is amazing. Pod racing, fucking Anakin's a little, this is awesome. And back then, I never put two and two together that they were showing the little kid that will eventually become Darth Vader. You know what I mean?
You know how much hate mail that little kid got?
We
were talking about that.
That's a whole big.
He doesn't act He doesn't act anymore. He he's
out. Yeah.
He doesn't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm like, dude.
I remember seeing that, loving it. Even Attack of the Clones when I was younger, love that. And then it was when about Revenge of the Sith came out, and I was a little bit older, so I could kind of, I guess, review movies, I guess, as you say, in like
you understood
more adult eyes. And like, I really remember liking Revenge of the Sith, and I was like, this is kind of different. And then when I got a little bit older, I went back and watched Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and I really, really, really do not like those movies.
My biggest thing,
I really do not
about those movies. The one thing I don't like is they made Anakin such a bitch. Like, there's
not only that, but if you look at that, the
bitch,
Menace especially, there's not really any interesting characters in that entire movie.
I mean, Qui-Gon Jinn was kind of cool.
Qui-Gon Jinn was,
I was talking to Mike about this. I said, the reason why I like Qui-Gon Jinn so much is because that dude didn't give a fuck. Like, he was like, oh, we're about to die? Fuck it.
But that's the thing. He's very, like, if you were to describe his character, the only thing I can think of Qui-Gon Jinn is he's very stern and just very kind of, all right, this is it. But that's it. We don't know really anything else about
They need to make it. They make a solo series.
I will say the only thing, I take back what I said, actually. Not only characters. Ian McGregor as Obi-Wan was actually fantastic.
He did really good. He did
really good. Definitely.
Side note on Ewan McGregor, I saw him in a couple movies, and then of course as Obi-Wan. When Mama Jean and I started dating, she asked me if I had ever seen Moulin Rouge. And I don't know if you know this, I did tell Sean this reason. I'm a huge Broadway fan. I love musicals.
Really?
I love,
nice.
I'm huge.
He's great.
When you're 6'8" and 300 something pounds and been working corrections for years and years.
Last thing you think of is
when
musicals.
You say, I love Broadway. What they hear is like, you suck dick.
No, what they hear is, not to offend anybody, but gay.
Yeah. So she said, have you seen Moulin Rouge? No. It's got Nicole Kidman. Not a huge fan of Nicole Kidman. Mm-hmm. Days of Thunder, yes. She did that horror movie, The Others. That was good.
That was really good.
And she's like, well, let's watch it. Whatever. And then I started watching. I was like, hey, that's John Leguizamo. And then I went, holy shit, that's Obi-Wan.
That's Obi-Wan.
And then he started singing, and I went, holy shit, that's Obi-Wan.
Got a remarkable voice.
Yeah, I mean,
the same thing happened to me whenever I watched Les Mis. You see Les Mis?
Oh, my.
And I was like,
Wolverine can sing?
Now, seeing Les Mis, I've seen Les Mis on stage. I
really?
do not like Russell Crowe. And I like Russell Crowe in almost every other movie he's in.
One very good in that one.
Was it Cinderella Man?
Cinderella Man. That was a great movie. That was a great movie.
I wasn't a big fan of him in that. And Hugh Jackman, I did know he was on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
For quite a while.
Him and...
That's where he met his wife.
What's Doogie Howser's name? Neil Patrick Harris?
Yeah.
They did a little song and dance number for like the Emmys or Golden Globes or one of those shows. But Hugh Jackman, that's why I was like, you know what I really like? Because, you like Wolverine and then you hear...
Right.
Well, then he came out with The Greatest Showman a few years ago.
That was great.
I hadn't seen any previews for that movie.
It's really
we went
good.
To see it in the theater.
Amazing.
It's fun.
I mean, from the first start, it's like, oh, and you're like, oh my God.
It's
and
awesome.
I was fucking hooked on that movie.
This is a true story. I used to listen to that song while I was working out. Like, I got so into that movie. Like, I was like, damn, just the beat and everything they have to it. It's just like, damn, this is...
You know what's crazy? That's one of those movies that, like, apparently a lot of the critics did not like that movie.
No, they didn't.
But regular people loved it. I loved it. And
it made
money.
That's the thing with the critics. You ever notice, like, movies
they don't know shit.
Yeah, they don't. But movies,
they want, like
movies that like everybody else likes. The critics are like, "This fucking sucks."
Yeah.
Like, what do you like about it? Like,
there's certain ones that, like exactly, and there's certain ones that are just like,
okay,
I get
it. Yeah,
like I get it.
But then
way back to Star Wars, they did it with The Rise of Skywalker. The critics just dismantled that movie and said it was awful.
Yeah,
but the fan reviews were off the charts. And I'm going to jump ahead a little. When I went to see Rise of Skywalker. for somebody who's been watching Star Wars for
we know.
30 years,
Right.
You go back and watch Rise of Skywalker, and it was like I was like choked up through a lot of that movie
Really?
because
I did
they went
rewatch
back
it.
to so many of the old things.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about the books.